I took revenge on my cheating fiancée by rebuilding my life and found out years later I might have a daughter with her. She left me for another man after I supported her through college, but I played the long game, recovered my confidence and career, and ultimately uncovered the truth about our past. If you told me 5 years after high school that my fiancée, my high school sweetheart, would cheat on me while we were engaged and I'd end up tracking her for closure, I would have laughed in disbelief. Yet, that's exactly how things played out. I, Nathan, 27 male, was known in high school for being focused, ambitious, caring, and heavily involved in extracurriculars. I wrestled in high school and loved it, mostly because wrestling let me eat whatever I wanted. Those intensely physical practices kept me in top shape, more so than other sports like football, which aren't as physically demanding and don't have the same risks of head injuries. Back then, I'd been dating a gorgeous older girl, Leah, 29F, who had graduated 2 years ahead of me and moved to a university out of state. Our relationship turned long distance as I finished high school, and we dreamed of eventually studying at the same college. We'd met at a friend's birthday party. We were both in other relationships, but Leah showed up with her then boyfriend and ended up going home with me that night. We slept together instantly. She later convinced me to break up with my girlfriend for her, promising she'd leave her boyfriend too, which she eventually did after some drama. After graduating, I proposed, and she said yes. We became engaged, planning to marry after we both earned our postgraduate degrees. I decided to join her at her university, even though it meant changing my plans. She was on track for a degree in nursing. I was pre-med, studying biology and aiming for med school. We moved into a small off-campus apartment. Money was tight. I had a 4-year scholarship covering most expenses, but both of us took part-time jobs to get by. Our families weren't well off, so we really were on our own. In Leah's 3rd year, she struggled with grades. She'd always been a solid B student, but felt overwhelmed. To get into the competitive nursing program, she asked me if she could cut her work hours and focus on studying. I agreed, thinking as her fiancé, I should support her however I could. I began working longer hours, sometimes up to 60 per week, paying for rent, utilities, her healthcare, everything. The stress took a toll. My strict routine and physical training fell away. I stopped wrestling, stopped working out, but kept eating as if I still had insane practices daily. I rapidly gained over 70 pounds. Meanwhile, Leah became more distant, sometimes not answering calls, sometimes sending generic, "I can't talk right now" texts. Once, when I rang her, I heard a man's voice and heavy breathing in the background. When confronted, she hung up, later claiming she was at the gym and some guy was bothering her. But I didn't press it. I trusted her. Despite constant strain, I pushed through school and graduated a year early with my undergrad degree. Leah still had 2 years left on her nursing program. We agreed I'd take my medical school entrance exam, but I'd postpone school so she could finish, financially supporting her until she graduated. Then she'd support US when I went to med school by working as a nurse. At the time, this seemed like a smite move, a brief 2-year sacrifice for the woman I believed I'd spend my life with. 6 months post-grad, and still working full-time as a pharmacy tech at CVS, I noticed Leah had changed. She lied about little things, then about bigger things, and her excuses made no sense. I had suspicions she might be cheating, but I hung on to hope things would improve. All the while, we argued more and more. She called me childish and overweight. I'd remind her she wouldn't have made it without me. It became toxic. She started not coming home, ignoring my calls, only texting. Still, I didn't give up, maybe out of blindness, maybe out of habit. At one point, I suggested we have a baby. Maybe that would bring us closer. She shot it down instantly. Let's wait until I graduate. Just 6 more months. In retrospect, a baby wouldn't have saved anything. 3 months before her graduation, I came home after work to find all her things gone. Literally just her stuff, including items I bought for her. I thought we'd been robbed until I realized only her belongings were missing. She texted me saying it was over. Here's where she left the ring. She was moving on, and so should I. Her message was cold and emotionless, almost like a business transaction, ignoring our 7 years together and all my support. No call, no meeting, just a text. I was devastated, humiliated, furious. I texted and called nonstop, trying to make her understand what she'd cost me. She blocked my number, leaving me blindsided and heartbroken. It felt like a long con scam had unfolded right in my open palms. I'd supported her through everything, only for her to abandon me the second she'd finished school. I realized, bitterly, that I hadn't ever considered Leah to be all that smart, but she'd fooled me for years, using me like a walking wallet, her real-life catfishing scam. While I floundered, stuck in a low-paying pharmacy job, she soared off to start her nursing career. 2 days after being blocked, I went to the hospital where she now worked, just to see her in person. I watched her walk to a new BMW, the kind she used to obsess about but could in no way afford. I tried approaching her. She zoomed off without a word. Something inside me broke. I began obsessively monitoring her, trailing her car, lurking outside her work, needing closure, though I was in denial about my own unhealthy behavior. One night, I tracked her from the hospital to an upscale neighborhood. She parked at a massive house with a 4-car garage. No way could she afford this, even as a nurse. I parked a few blocks away, watched another car pull up and go inside, and driven by curiosity, tried sneaking a peek through the fence before spotting security cameras and bailing out. The next morning, I skipped work, hoping to tail the other car once it left the house. I arrived by 6 a.m. Eventually, I saw the garage open and the same car drove to the hospital. Out got a well-dressed man in his mid-30s, obviously a doctor. I followed him inside as he changed into scrubs and realized I'd seen him on Leah's Instagram in group photos from over a year ago. She had started working clinicals with him then. Had they been seeing each other all along? I shuddered at how obvious the signs were in hindsight. Her secretive behavior matched up. This realization depressed me to my core. I was overweight, almost broke, stuck as a pharmacy tech, with a useless bachelor's degree, while my ex had left me for a rich, successful doctor. I became obsessed with their routine, shadowing them for weeks, desperate to know for certain. I knew it was unhealthy and wrong, but I couldn't stop. It was the only thing in my shattered life that made me feel in control. I got reckless, fell asleep in my car, outside their house one street over. Next thing I knew, there was a loud knocking on my window. The doctor, with Leah behind filming me on her phone, both yelling at me to leave them alone, threatening a restraining order. The doctor had no idea who I was, just thought I was some creepy guy obsessed with his new girlfriend. My car wouldn't start. I was mortified. Sure enough, 2 days later, a process server handed me a restraining order from Leah and her boyfriend. The humiliation snapped me into reality. I needed to stop and get my act together, or risk jail. About a month later, out of nowhere, my ex-girlfriend before Leah, Madison, 27F, the one I'd unceremoniously dumped for Leah, called me. She'd seen on social media that Leah was marrying the doctor. That call was less about concern and more about rubbing it in my face that she'd been proved right. She insulted me for my choices, cackled about karma, and hung up before I could explain or apologize. After that call, old mutual friends started texting me, asking what happened. I was so ashamed I started blocking numbers. Curiosity and masochism got to me, so I downloaded Instagram, Leah's favorite app, back when we still had something. I saw hundreds of pictures with her and the doctor, evidence they'd been together at least a year. All photos of me had vanished or been edited to erase me, confirming she'd removed me from her life long before I realized it. Worse, her last post announced she was 5 months pregnant. Except, she dumped me just 2 months ago. 5 months ago, we were still together, at least sort of. Could I be the father? She always said she was on birth control, but had she lied, involved with both of us at the same time? Update 1. The idea that the baby could be mine ate away at me. Emotionally and financially, I was barely surviving, and the thought of fatherhood was paralyzing. I knew Leah wouldn't welcome me into her new family and likely wouldn't want me near the child. I figured she was lying to her husband too, but honestly didn't care. He'd made his choices as well. Instead of spiraling, I poured myself into getting my life back on track. I doubled down at work, started intermittent fasting, and hit the gym. Soon, weight was falling off. I joined a yoga group and meditation classes, which helped me meet new friends, especially women with better outlooks. Dating was awkward at first. I hadn't been with anyone but Leah for over 7 years, and I was rusty. But my main focus, prepping for my medical school entrance exam, kept me motivated. Within months, I dropped 40 pounds, cleaned up my eating, and cut ties with all our mutual friends. I changed my phone number for a fresh start. 5 months later, I passed the MCAT and got into med school. I plan to finish in 3 years and complete a surgical residency, no matter what. Medical school was intense. I took as many credits as I could, tutored on the side, and mostly focused on myself. 2 years flew by. Then, after nearly a decade with only Leah, I decided to try dating again. I tried Tinder, but most matches didn't go anywhere. 7 months on dating apps got me nowhere, so I switched to YouTube and books on self-confidence, social skills, and the way of the superior man. After learning more about approaching women, I challenged myself. Talked to attractive women for an hour a day, mostly at grocery stores. Surprisingly, it worked. In 21 days, I got 15 phone numbers, went on 11 dates, and had 5 friends with benefits. At one point, I juggled 9 women at once. Me, the guy who once worshipped Leah like she was a goddess. But the lifestyle was draining, so I eventually cut back. For a brief period, though, I finally felt back in control, a rock star in my own right. Then one day, while doing my usual errands, I spotted a woman with 2 kids in a grocery store. She looked familiar. I called her name, and sure enough, Leah. She seemed surprised, approached me, and gave me a hug. She said she'd tried reaching me, but hadn't been able to. She eventually gave up. I asked her why she'd want to contact the man she'd gotten a restraining order against. She apologized. Said she regretted how things ended. Leah looked different than I remembered. No longer the stunner I once thought she was. She'd gotten plainer and put on some weight. Our conversation was awkward. I tried to end it and leave, but she seemed keen to keep talking. Eventually asked her for my number so we could grab coffee. A thought nagged me. Her oldest girl could be mine. I didn't want anything to do with Leah, but the possibility of a daughter changed things. I figured if I met her kid, maybe I could stealthily get a paternity test sample. We met for a picnic. Leah seemed nervous, kept apologizing, and even joked about me getting caught sleeping in my car by her husband. She was flirty, but I'd learned enough by now to keep my distance. I mostly asked about her kids, complimented them, and suggested meeting again. A week later, we met at a water park. I'd arranged to buy smoothies for the girls and while chatting, managed to swipe my possible daughter's used straw. Afterward, I handed the straw to a buddy who was a genetic technologist. A day later, I had the results. The little girl was mine. I didn't know what to do. I could expose everything to Leah's husband and ruin her attempts at reconciliation, but I wasn't in a place to co-parent. With my residency beginning soon, I had no time, money, or emotional energy to fight for custody or visitation. For now, the best thing for my daughter seemed to be stability, so I let her stay with Leah and kept in occasional contact, hoping to be part of her life once I could. That's it for this story. This story demonstrates how trust, naivete, and emotional dependency can sometimes cost years and change the trajectory of our lives. But perseverance and self-awareness open doors for change and recovery, even after devastating betrayals. Here is a question for you. What would you have done if you found out your ex might have kept your child a secret? Would you step in, or would you wait until your life was on solid ground?